Welcome back. Volcanoes in Arizona. What? 7. I'm losing my marbles. Yeah, guess what? We got, in fact, all of them. We have cinder cones. We have composite volcanoes. We have shield volcanoes. We have super volcanoes. Let's go through it. So this is a map of Arizona showing the distribution of volcanic rocks from present to 200 million years ago. You can see some of the different volcanic fields, Flagstaff, around the White Mountains, Springerville. Those are the most kind of recent, bigger ones, kind of in orange, kind of in this transition zone, but a lot of yellow as well in the basin and range province. Not so much in the Colorado Plateau. But in all of these areas, there was volcanic activity. That's a lot of Arizona. I would say almost, except for this portion up here, which is, 20% of Arizona. So 80% of Arizona is pretty close to some sort of past historic volcanic activity. Some of it extends to almost 200 million years ago, but some of it is very recent. Speaking of, the most recent, actually, no, I take that back. 1 second. One more volcano. So here's SP Crater. It is a cinder cone volcano. It's up in north of Flagstaff. Actually a pretty cool volcano. You can kind of drive here. It's on some ranch land, but you can get to it. You can climb up, you can go up this little path, climb to the top. It's a heck of a hard little hike because, again, these are cinder cones. They're made of these cinders. It's kind of this sharp, jagged sand you're trying to walk up to get to the top of these things. But there's a number of these in this area, and you can see the lava flow that came out of that. More on that in lab. But here is Flagstaff to look at a map. SP Crater is way up here, but all of these little circles you see, these are all little cinder cone volcanoes. There's hundreds of them, along with a composite volcano we'll talk about momentarily. But another interesting cinder cone volcano to mention is called Sunset Crater. So this is the newest volcano in Arizona. So it's about 20 miles northeast of Flagstaff, just right off the road. Doesn't take much time to get there. It's a national monument, so there's little hiking trails you can park. There's stuff to do. There's actually ancient mud ruins from native people there as well. So there's a lot of cool things to do. Check it out. It's actually a nice little place. You cannot climb that cinder cone. You cannot. That one's off limits. You can do the other one, SP Crater. Which fun fact about SP Crater. Look up how it got its name. Any case, Sunset Crater. About 1,000 feet tall, so very indicative of cinder cones. Formed around 1085, so that was, 936 years ago. So that's the most recent volcano in Arizona. So kind of formed when runny basalt magma began. It mixed with water beneath the ground, kind of flashed to steam, and this kind of eruption occurred. So as that molten rock water soup reached the surface, again, the water flashed to steam, causing the liquid rock to explode out from the ground, kind of forming this cinder cone volcano. Yeah. So here it is. Like I said, there's roads through here. There's little areas you can park and kind of walk through some of the areas. But again, you cannot climb this one. SP Crater you can. As this was erupting, again, those tiny blobs of lava kind of fell back to earth called cinders. Sometimes the cinders are called lapilli. The cinders pile up around the volcanic vent, forming this cone shape. It also, in this kind of eruption, shot out larger blocks. Sometimes, every once in a while with these little pieces, you get kind of like a bigger shart out of material, so-called lava bombs. So you can find bigger chunks of material as well. But as this was kind of dying down, it also had that a lava flow associated with it. So there's a couple of lava flows, one of those extending about 7 miles from the volcano itself. So here it is right here, very jagged, lava flow that kind of came out of the Sunset Crater cinder cone volcano. So we have cinder cones. Great examples up in the Flagstaff area. Also up in the Flagstaff area is the composite volcano, the San Francisco Peaks. You ever been to snowball skiing there? The big main mountain in Flagstaff, if you've ever been there, it's called the San Francisco Peaks. It's one mountain, but all these different jagged points on top are the different peaks. I think there's 7 different peaks. Humphreys Peak is the tallest. It's one mountain, San Francisco Mountain. What it used to look like is this. So kind of following the flanks, the sides of the mountain, the volcano, you can kind of recreate what this volcano looked like, this composite volcano. Exploded violently. But again, the San Francisco Peaks are the kind of the eroded remains of a kind of a single, again, much higher composite volcano called San Francisco Mountain. This is just north of Flagstaff, downtown Flagstaff, about 7 miles. The main big mountain up there. This was constructed over multiple eruptions from about 900,000 to 400,000 years ago. Remember, composite built up of layers. Sometime between the last major eruption and about 92,000 years ago, the top northeast flank of the mountain kind of collapsed in a big avalanche, and it kind of spilled outward and downward to the northeast. But it also helped to create a very deeply eroded valley at the very top of the mountain, where the topmost portion of the mountain once stood. So here's a really bad geologic map of looking down onto, this is pretty bad, of the San Francisco Mountain. All the different colors indicate different lava events, different flow events, so composite built up layers. And you can see this area is what collapsed and kind of in an avalanche kind of moved to kind of the northeast. The current high point of San Francisco Peaks is 12,633 feet, Humphreys Peak. If we kind of backtrack and figure out how tall it was based on the sides and the angle of the sides, it was probably around 14,633 feet, which would put it at one of the tallest mountains in the U.S., in the lower 48 states. There's been a great deal of erosion, which is the weathering and erosion, the breaking down of rock material in that kind of inner basin where there was that collapse and avalanche. When the ice ages occurred, when it was much colder throughout the North America, including in Arizona, ice and glaciers formed in there, which additionally helped to carve out that basin. More on that, and I think in the last unit of the semester. Today we can see some of these glacial rock deposits called moraines left behind as evidence. So from volcanoes to ice and fire. It's like Game of Thrones up there. So this is kind of the inner basin of San Francisco Mountain. Humphreys Peak is over here. I think this is Anasazi Peak, but you can see the different peaks. So this is the basin that eventually collapsed, and there was a landslide. You can actually go here, hike here, camp here. It's a place called Lockett Meadow. Kind of hard to get into because there's not a lot of, or hard to get a spot to park, let alone camp here, because there's not a lot of them, and it's very gorgeous. Check it out if you can. So anyway, that's San Francisco Mountain, the composite volcano. But again, all of these cinder cones, all of these round little cinder cones throughout that whole area. In fact, there's over 600 cinder cones in the San Francisco volcanic field, this area. This whole area formed from a geological hotspot. So as North American plate, where Arizona is, kind of slowly moved over this hotspot, it created all of these things. And we can track the motion of it based on the ages of these. The oldest volcanic activity out here in Williams, Arizona, if you've been out to like Arizona, these were erupting about 6 million years ago, and as you continue off to the east, they get younger and younger and younger to where some of these only erupted, 1,000 years ago. So if we're trying to figure out any potential future site of volcanic activity in Flagstaff, it would be kind of continuing off to the east of this area. So let's go ahead and pause here because we got more volcanoes in Arizona to talk about. So we'll pause here. When we come back, we'll talk about what do we got left? Shield volcanoes and super volcanoes in Arizona, and we'll also wrap up the unit. I'll see you back here in just a minute.